This husband-wife, or more accurately, father-mother pair, has very great economic, political, and spiritual importance. It is in fact the fundamental social building block. Single men cannot participate in the Hamlet Council, where seats are awarded by married couple, and with rare exceptions, only men with children carry any weight there. In fact, in some hamlets, men are not even awarded seats until they have a child. The name is true for descent groups, voluntary organizations, irrigation societies, temple congregations, and so on. In virtually all local activities, from the religious to the agricultural, the parental couple participates as a unit, the male performing certain tasks, the female certain complementary ones. By linking a man and a wife through an incorporation of the name of one of their direct descendants into their own, technonymy underscores both the importance of the marital pair in local society and the enormous value which is placed upon procreation. This value also appears in a more explicit way in the second cultural consequence of the pervasive use of technonyms, the classification of individuals into what, for want or a better term, may be called procreational strata. From the point of view of any actor, his Hamlet mates are divided into childless people, called Wayan, mad, and so on. People with children called father, mother of, people with grandchildren called grandfather, grandmother of, and people with great-grandchildren called great-grandparent of. And to this ranking is attached a general image of the nature of social hierarchy. Childless people are dependent minors. Fathers of are active citizens directing community life. Grandfathers of are respected elders giving sage advice from behind the scenes. And great-grandfathers of are senior dependents, already have returned to the world of the gods. In any given case, various mechanisms have to be employed to adjust this rather too schematic formula to practical realities in such a way as to allow it to mark out a workable social ladder. But with these adjustments, it does indeed mark one out, and as a result, a man's procreative status is a major element in his social identity, both in his own eyes and those of everyone else. Invalid the stages of human life are not conceived in terms of the processes of biological aging, to which little cultural attention is given, but of those of social regenesis. Thus, it is not sheer reproductive power as such, how many children one can oneself produce, that is critical. A couple with 10 children is no more honored than a couple with 5, and a couple with but a single child who has in turn but a single child outranks them both. That counts in reproductive continuity, the preservation of the community's ability to perpetuate itself, just as it is, a fact which the clear result of technominy, the designation of procreative chains, brings out most clearly. The way in which Balinese technonymy outlines such chains can be seen from the model diagram, figure 1. For simplicity, I have shown only the male technonyms and have used English names for the referent generation. I have also arranged the model so as to stress the fact that technonymies usage reflects the absolute age, not the genealogical order of the sex of the eponymous descendants. Figure 1 indicates technonymy outlines not only procreative statuses, but specific sequences of such statuses, 2, 3, or 4, very occasionally 5 generations deep. Which particular sequences are marked out is largely accidental. Had Mary been born before Joe or Dawn before Mary, the whole alignment would have been altered. But though the particular individuals who are taken as reference and hence the particular sequences of filiation which receive symbolic recognition is an arbitrary and not very consequential matter. The fact that such sequences are marked out stresses an important fact about personal identity among the Balinese. An individual is not perceived in the context of who his ancestors were. That, given the cultural veil which slips over the dead, is not even known, but rather in the context of whom he is ancestral to. One is not defined, as in so many societies of the world, in terms of who produces one, some more or less distant, more or less grand founder of one's line, but in terms of whom one has produced a specific, in most cases still living, half-formed individual who is one's child, grandchild, or great-grandchild, and to whom one traces one's connection to a particular set of procreative links. What links great-grandfather of Joe, great-grandfather of Joe, and father of Joe is the fact that, in a sense, they have cooperated to produce Joe, that is, to sustain the social metabolism of the Balinese people in general, and their hamlet in particular. Again, what looks like a celebration of a temporal process is in fact a celebration of the maintenance of what, borrowing a term from physics, Gregory Bateson has aptly called a steady state. In this sort of technonymous regime, the entire population is classified in terms of its relation to and representation in that subclass of the population in whose hands social regenesis now most instantly lies. The oncoming cohort of prospective parents, under its aspect even that most times saturated of human conditions, great-grandparenthood appears as but an ingredient in an unperishing present. Status titles. In theory, everyone or nearly everyone in Bali bears one or another title, Aida Bogus, Justi, Gusti, Pasek, Dao, and so forth, which places him on a particular rung in an all Bali status ladder. Each title represents a specific degree of cultural superiority or inferiority with respect to each and every other one, so that the whole population is sorted out into a set of uniformly graded castes. In fact, and those who have tried to analyze the system in such terms have discovered the situation is much more complex. It is not simply that a few long-ranking villagers claim that they or their parents have somehow forgotten what their titles are, nor that there are marked inconsistencies in the ranking of titles from place to place, at times even from informant to informant, nor that, in spite of their hereditary basis, there are nevertheless ways to change titles. These are but not uninteresting details concerning the day-to-day working of the system. What is critical is that status titles are not attached to groups at all, but only to individuals. Status in Bali, or at least that sort determined by titles, is a personal characteristic. It is independent of any social structural factors whatsoever. It has, of course, important practical consequences, and those consequences are shaped by and expressed through a wide variety of social arrangements, from kinship groups to governmental institutions. But to be a Dewa, a Pulosari, a Pring, or a Maspadam is at base only to have inherited the right to bear that title and to demand the public tokens of deference associated with it. It is not to play any particular role, to belong to any particular group, or occupy any particular economic, political, or sacerdotal position. The status title system is a pure prestige system. From a man's title, given your own title exactly what the manner you ought to display toward him and he toward you in practically every context of public life, irrespective or whatever other social ties obtain between you, and whatever you may happen to think of him as a man. Balinese polites is very highly developed, and it is rigorously controlled, and it rigorously controls the outer surface of social behavior over virtually the entire range of daily life. Speech style, posture, dress, eating, marriage, even house construction, place of burial, and mode of cremation are patterned in terms of a precise code of manners, which grows less out of a passion for social grace as such as out of some rather far-reaching metaphysical considerations. The sort of human inequality embodied in the status title system and the system of etiquette which expresses it is neither moral, nor economic, nor political. It is religious. It is the reflection in everyday interaction of the divine order, upon which such interaction from this point of view, a form of ritual, is supposed to be modeled. A man's title does not signal his wealth, his power, or even his moral reputation. It signals his spiritual composition, and the incongruity between this and this secular position may be enormous. Some of the greatest movers and shakers in Bali are the most ruddily approached, some of the most delicately handled, the least respected. It will be difficult to conceive of anything further from the Balinese spirit that Machiavelli's comment that titles do not reflect honor upon men, but rather men upon their titles. In theory, Balinese theory, all titles come from the gods. Each has been passed along, not always without alterations from father to child, like some sacred heirloom. The difference is in prestige value of the different titles being an outcome of the varying degree to which the men who have had care of them have observed the spiritual stipulations embodied in them. To bear a title is to agree, implicitly at least, to meet divine standards of action, or at least approach them, and not all men have been able to do this to the same extent. The result is the existing discrepancy in the rank of titles and of those who bear them. Cultural status, as opposed to social position, is here once again a reflection of distance from divinity. Associated with virtually every title, there are one or a series of legendary events, very concrete in nature, involving some spiritually significant misstep by one or another holder of the title. These offenses, one can hardly call them sins, are regarded as specifying the degree to which the title has declined in value, the distance with which it has fallen from a fully transcendent status, and thus fixing in a general way at least its position in the overall scale of prestige, particularly in mythic, geographical migrations, cross-title marriages, military failures, branches of mourning etiquette, spiritual lapses, and the like are regarded as having debased the title to a greater or less extent, greater from the lower titles, lesser from the higher. Yet, despite the appearances, this uneven deterioration is, in its essence, neither a moral nor an historical phenomenon. It is not moral because the incidents conceived to have occasioned it are not, for the most part, those against which negative ethical judgments would in Bali any more than elsewhere ordinarily be brought, while genuine moral faults, cruelty, treachery, dishonesty, profligacy, damage only reputations, which pass from the scene which their owners, not titles which remain. It is not historical because these incidents, disjunct occurrences in a once upon a time, are not invoked as the causes of present realities, but as statements of their nature. The important fact about title debasing events is not that they happen in the past, or even that they happen at all, but that they are debasing. They are formulations not of the processes which have brought the existing states, the state of affairs, into being, not yet of moral judgments upon it, in neither of which intellectual exercise the Balinese show much interest. They are images of the underlying relationship between the form of human society and the divine pattern of which it is, in the nature of things, an imperfect expression, more imperfect at some point than at others. But if after all that has been said about the autonomy of the title system, such a relationship between cosmic patterns and social forms is conceived to exist. Exactly how it is understood How is the title system based solely on religious conceptions, on theories of inherent differences in spiritual worth among individual men? Connected up with that, looking at the society from the outside, we will call the realities of power, influence, wealth, reputation, and so on, implicit in the social division of labor. How, in short, is the actual order of social command fitted into a system of prestige ranking wholly independent of it, so as the account for and indeed sustain the loose and general correlation between them, which in fact obtains? The answer is through performing quite ingeniously a kind of hat trick, a certain sleight of hand with a famous cultural institution imported from India and adapted to local states, the Varna system. By means of the Varna system, the Balinese inform a very disorderly collection of statues, pinholes with a simple shape, which is represented as growing naturally out of it, but which in fact is arbitrarily imposed upon it. Venga, Tommy. ¿Qué pasó, Tommy?